All right, so we're diving into the Eric Smith case today.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, this is one that's always kind of stayed with me.
Oh, for sure. It's a tough one.
Yeah, whether you're like prepping for a debate or just, can't get it out of your head.
Right.
We're gonna go deep on this one today.
Absolutely.
So we've got Smith's Wikipedia page up and a couple of those like classic 48 hours episodes on YouTube.
Oh, yeah, those are good.
And you know what's crazy is Smith was granted parole just last year.
I know, after 27 years.
Can you imagine? And it just brings up so many questions like, can someone who does something that brutal,
Especially so young.
yeah, as a teenager, can they actually change? Like, it really makes you wonder about
Rehabilitation, for sure.
justice, like human nature even.
Yeah, it cuts to the core of how we see, responsibility, especially with kids who commit crimes. Like, can a 13-year-old really grasp what they're doing?
Right.
The permanence of it, the Eric Smith case, it just brings all that up in such a stark way.
Okay, so let's go back to the beginning.
Okay, back to the beginning.
With the crime itself.
Yeah.
It was August 2nd, 1993 in Savona, New York.
Small town.
Tiny, right?
Yeah.
Like everyone knows everyone.
Everyone knows everyone's business.
Exactly. And 4-year-old Derek Robey,
Yeah.
he was walking to a park program, just a little walk from home, and that's when he runs into 13-year-old Eric Smith.
On his bike.
Yeah, riding his bike.
And it wasn't just, a random bump in.
No.
Smith actually said later, he confessed, that when he saw Robey, he knew he wanted to hurt him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he lured him into the woods, saying there was a shortcut.
It's just so premeditated.
Killing, yeah.
And then it gets really, really bad.
Yeah, this is where it takes a turn.
Smith strangles Robey, but he doesn't stop there.
No.
He drops rocks on his head. And then...
And this is what's really hard to hear.
I know.
He sodomized him with a stick.
It's just awful.
And then the detail about the Kool-Aid.
Oh my God, yeah, he pours Kool-Aid on the wounds.
It's like, why? What was he trying to do? It's so disturbing.
I know, it's like he was trying to, I don't know, like stage it or something.
That detail,
Yeah.
I mean, it really got to the investigators too.
Yeah, I bet.
Like, it speaks to a different level of, I don't know, awareness.
Control. Yes.
More than just a kid lashing out.
And the fact that he posed Robey's body,
Oh, right. Yeah.
that's something you see with, adults who are very deliberate
Methodical, yeah.
in their actions. It just doesn't seem like a typical impulsive kid thing.
No, not at all.
Yeah,
So Savona is freaking out.
of course. Total panic.
I mean, they thought it was someone from outside, some predator.
Right, makes sense.
Even Smith's own grandfather thought that.
Really? Wow.
But here's where it gets weird.
Okay.
Smith, he puts himself right in the middle of the investigation.
No way.
Yeah. Goes to the police station, volunteers information.
Right.
Gives them details that turn out to be right.
That's so strange.
I know, and in the 48 Hours episode.
One investigator said Smith, totally enjoyed being questioned and didn't want it to end.
Ugh. It's like he was getting off on it.
I know, he was part of this whole horrible show that he created.
That need for attention, maybe.
Yeah, or control.
Or like this, I don't know, this power trip.
So creepy.
It took a few days for him to finally confess.
Yeah, first to his family.
Right.
And then to the police.
His great-grandfather,
Yeah.
who's a former sheriff's deputy.
Yeah.
He helped negotiate the surrender. Can you imagine?
Wow, what a messed up family situation.
Seriously, how do you even process that?
I know, to have your kid do something so horrible.
And wanting to protect them at the same time.
It's unimaginable.
It really is.
So because of how bad the crime was,
Yeah.
they tried Smith as an adult.
Wow.
Youngest in New York history at the time.
And the prosecution, they focused on the brutality.
Of course.
And how it was planned out.
And this is where it gets really interesting legally, right?
Yeah.
Smith's defense, they said he had intermittent explosive disorder.
IED, yeah.
So it's like, imagine someone who just has these bursts of rage.
With the volcano erupting.
Yes, exactly.
It's all emotion, not really thought out.
So they're saying his actions weren't planned. It was this disorder.
Exactly. But it's never that simple.
Right.
I mean, there were experts at the trial. Some said he had IED, some said he didn't.
Oh, wow.
It makes you think, how much can you hold someone accountable
Right.
if they're mentally ill?
Yeah, that's a tough one.
It really is.
But in the end, the jury found him guilty of second-degree murder.
Wow.
And he's sentenced to 9 years to life.
9 years to life at 14 years old.
Yeah, a life sentence for a kid.
It's heavy stuff.
Yeah.
It makes you think about the whole point of sentencing. What are we trying to do? Punish them protect everyone else? Or do you really think someone that young can actually be rehabilitated?
It's a lot to unpack for sure.
For sure. 9 years to life. Can you imagine for a teenager?
And what about Derek Robey's family?
Oh, right.
I can't even imagine losing a child like that. So horrible.
Just awful.
And then having to go through it again every 2 years.
With the parole hearings,
Every time Smith comes up for parole, like reliving the whole thing.
it's like they're serving a life sentence, too.
It's true.
Right alongside him, constantly reminded.
Forced to fight to keep him locked up.
That's a lot to carry, that kind of burden.
And Smith was denied parole, what, like 10 times?
10 times between 2002 and 2020.
Each time, the Robey family having to face him.
Relive it all over again.
Argue for him to stay in prison.
It shows you how far-reaching the effects of a crime like this are.
Yeah, it's not just the victim and the person who did it.
It's everyone around them, the families, the whole community.
So Smith serves his time, denied parole over and over,
Yeah.
but then in 2021, things change. He gets parole. What happened?
Well, a bunch of things went into that decision.
Okay.
He had done a lot of programs in prison, showing he was trying to better himself. He got engaged while he was inside, too.
Oh, wow.
So maybe they thought he'd have some stability outside.
So they're seeing some progress, like a chance for a normal life.
I think that was the idea, but who knows? Was it real change or was he playing the system?
Right. Who can say what's really going on in his head?
Exactly.
And it brings us back to that question, can someone like Eric Smith, who did something so horrific, can they really change? And people in Savona, they were furious.
Makes sense, right? They've been living with this for almost 30 years.
And then suddenly he might be walking among them again.
How do you balance, hope for rehabilitation with the fear, the pain that the community feels?
Especially when something this awful becomes part of a town's history.
Yeah, it stays with you.
So we've talked about the legal stuff, the impact on everyone involved.
Yeah.
Let's get back to the psychology of this.
Okay.
That could explain why Smith did this. We talked about IED earlier.
Right, that could be part of it, but there could be other things too.
Oh.
Was he bullied? Was he looking for some control?
After being victim himself.
Yeah, exactly. Joni Johnston, the psychologist from the 48 Hours episode, she said Smith hurt animals before.
Oh, right, yeah.
And that's often a sign that someone might become violent towards people later.
And then there's that thing Smith said, that if he hadn't been caught, he might have killed again.
It's scary to think about, like, there was so much darkness inside him.
So young, too.
Makes you wonder if we can ever really understand what drives someone to do something like that, especially a kid.
Yeah, it's like a mystery we might never solve.
There's a lot we still don't know.
So Smith's released in February 2022, moves to Queens.
Far away from Savona.
A whole different world. He says he wants a normal life, marriage, family, a job. He even said he wants to counsel bullied kids, which is
kind of ironic, right?
Given his past, yeah. Like, is he serious? Is it all an act?
It's hard to say, is that real remorse, wanting to make things right? Or is it a story he's made up to make himself look better?
Can someone change that much after what he did?
That's the question, isn't it? And I think everyone has to answer that for themselves.
This whole case is just, it's so confusing trying to see how this brutal crime could lead to some kind of rehabilitation, this guy trying to build a new life.
It really pushes you to think about the tough stuff, doesn't it? The big questions.
Like about human nature.
Yeah, can people really change? What does redemption even look like?
Yeah.
And how do we balance justice with second chances?
It's a lot to think about.
It really is.
It's like this whole case, it's a reflection of how we as a society struggle with these questions.
Yeah.
We want to believe in second chances, that people can be rehabilitated.
Right.
But then you have this horrible crime, the trauma it causes.
And it makes it so hard to find those easy answers.
It really does. So how do we do it?
How do we do what?
How do we reconcile these two things? Wanting justice, but also believing in redemption.
Especially with a case as intense as this one.
Yeah.
It's a tough one, Legal experts, people making the laws, they've been trying to figure it out for years.
And there's no easy solution, is there?
Not really. I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all answer.
We can't just treat every crime the same way, can we?
Nope. Got to look at the individual, their mental state, their age. What are the chances they can actually change?
Right. And even beyond that, what about the stuff that leads kids to crime in the first place?
Oh, absolutely. The systemic issues.
Poverty,
Yeah.
lack of education, violence, not enough mental health resources.
All of that creates an environment where crime can flourish.
So it's not just about punishing people after the fact.
It's about stopping it before it happens.
Giving kids the support they need.
The resources.
To make good choices, break out of those cycles.
Like violence and despair.
Exactly. So putting money into those prevention programs.
Early intervention.
Yeah.
Community support systems. That's where we could really make a difference.
It's easy to get caught up in the emotion of it all, right?
Right.
Wanting revenge, wanting the person who did it to suffer.
Mm-hmm. But that's not real justice.
We have to look beyond that, at the bigger picture.
It has to be nuanced. Look at how people behave, how they might be able to change.
Think about the well-being of everyone involved, the individuals and the community as a whole.
It's not just about Eric Smith, though.
It's about Derek Robey, right?
Absolutely.
His life was cut short.
And his family, they've shown incredible strength through all of this.
I can't even imagine.
Their story is a reminder of the power of love. And how important it is to remember those we've lost.
Even in the darkest times.
It's really powerful.
And I think, that's a good place to wrap up this deep dive.
Yeah.
We've gone into the dark parts, all the complexities.
We've wrestled with some tough questions.
But even with something as awful as this case,
there's still hope.
There's healing. There's the possibility of creating something good out of something so terrible.
That's what we have to focus on.
And that might be the biggest takeaway here. The search for meaning, for justice, believing that people can change.
It's what keeps us going.
Even when faced with the worst of humanity.
It's what makes us human, I think.
I hope this deep dive has given you a new way to think about this case.
Yeah, it's a tough one, that's for sure.
It really makes you question things, our justice system, human nature.
What it means to change.
And those are questions worth asking.
Absolutely.
They make us think critically.
Examine our own beliefs.
And strive for a world where things like this don't happen anymore.
A better world for everyone.
So keep questioning, keep exploring, keep diving deep.
And we'll see you next time.
Until then.